Alright, so the debate between bookshelf and floor standing loudspeakers has been around for a while now. And traditionally, tower speakers were kind of seen as the superior choice, yeah? Larger drivers, more drivers equals better bass extension and a more room-filling sound, right? And there's some merit to that. But there's really two factors that I can see where tower superiority kind of falls short for most modern listeners. One, few people can afford a full range floor standing loudspeaker. That's a tower that's going to give you the full 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. At least here in Oz, you are probably looking at $40,000 to $50,000 for something like that. And number two, which might even be more surprising, is that even fewer people are likely to have the floor space to accommodate that kind of loudspeaker. And so the question is, can you experience supreme fidelity for less? Less drivers, less loudspeaker, less dollars. Can a premium modern two-way bookshelf speaker deliver mind-blowing musical experiences? Well, Wharfedale are out to convince us that they can. Wharfedale's Elysian One is a two-way bookshelf loudspeaker featuring a 27 by 90mm air motion transformer, more commonly known as the AMT high frequency driver, and a 7-inch or 180mm coated fiberglass matrix cone. It has a 4 ohm nominal impedance that's 8 ohm compatible, a sensitivity rating of 89 dB, a frequency response of 49 Hz to 22 kHz, and a recommended amplification range between 25 and 175 watt. Each speaker weighs in at a pretty hefty 15 kilograms, and its dimensions are 490 high by 263 wide by 285 millimeters deep, with an additional 30 mil for those rather sizable speaker terminals. From the box, you get removable speaker grills, link cables because Elysian One is capable of being bi-wired. There is Premium Audio's quintessential white cotton gloves, and a nicely printed Elysian user manual. Now the user manual, gloves, and link cables all come in this sort of leather textured display box, and it's nice. Wharfedale's logo is embossed on the cover, and when you open it, everything's really neatly organized within these felt insets. It's not the most impressive thing I've ever seen with a pair of luxury loudspeakers, but this is Wharfedale. And so you kind of know at the outset that almost every single dollar of the total sales price, which in Australia is $8,000, has been used to squeeze as much sound quality out of the Elysian as humanly possible. And I don't know about you, but if I want my dollars going anywhere, it's probably there. Elysian's 6-layer hand-finished piano lacquer applied over real wood veneers that curve seamlessly in this taper from the baffle to the back edge is super lush. Look, I know some people do see gloss as dated. I know Andrew Robinson made comment about the piano black on his Elysian 4 review, but the gloss walnut combination is actually really nice. I'd say timeless even. And a considerable amount of tech has gone into those cabinets. Wharfedale uses multi-layered timber of varying densities bonded with damping glue to reduce panel resonances. Its curvature further increases that rigidity and minimizes standing waves. So you've got these stunning curves that not only look beautiful, but also help to minimize parallel surfaces that reinforce specific internal frequencies that cause coloration. So Elysian's beauty actually kind of makes it a bit of a beast. And then there's the chrome accents surrounding the driver plates and across the speaker grille, which also aligns with this subtle cabinet rebate that wraps around the circumference of the speaker, separating the two drivers. It's all really elegant, really minimal, really luxe. Now, if you are a grills off kind of listener like I am, then the most striking feature is probably going to be Elysian's 27 by 90mm air motion transformer. AMTs use a pleated diaphragm, somewhat similar to an accordion, right? That expands and contracts, squeezing air between each fold to produce sound. Unlike dome tweeters, which move air more like a piston, AMTs move air faster and with greater efficiency. 4 times faster, in fact. And there's a whole host of reasons why you would want to employ this type of technology. There's the lower distortion because AMTs require less movement to produce the same output. There's the faster transients because their high-speed airflow results in crisper detail and better dynamics. There's the greater bandwidth because they often extend higher in frequency than domes do, which improves this sense of airiness around the top end. And then there's the more controlled dispersion because unlike domes, which radiate sound in all directions, AMTs focus energy more precisely, which in turn reduces room reflections to improve things like imaging. And so all this gives Elysian effortless detail retrieval, stunning dynamics, and a treble response that feels both airy and controlled. The sense of openness, that way that notes seem to just float in space, is exactly what makes AMTs so special. And with an AMT this large, Elysian One packs the ability to deliver pretty class-leading high-frequency authority and detail. Now, paired with the serious high-frequency detail of Elysian's AMT is its 7-inch or 180mm mid-bass driver. And being a research and development project, it's actually no surprise here that Wharfedale experimented pretty broadly before settling on the proprietary woven glass fiber matrix for the Elysian co-materials. Woofers themselves act like a sound pump, yeah, pushing and pulling sound to create pressure waves that form both mid and bass frequencies. And to do this accurately, the cone needs to be incredibly stiff because any flex is going to distort its shape and therefore warp the sound wave. And at the same time, it needs to be super light so that the voice coil and the motor assembly can move it with both incredible speed and incredible accuracy. That way, they're going to ensure that it faithfully reproduces every frequency that it's fed. And this is actually super important stuff to get right for a two-way bookshelf because its one woofer is responsible for both mid and bass frequencies. Wharfedale's proprietary woven glass fiber matrix combines maximum stiffness with the lowest possible mass. And then they wrap it in a high plasticity coating to further control its acoustic behavior. All of that to ensure that the listener gets deeper, controlled bass and very rich textured mids. And there is a wealth of R&D behind those woofers too. There's the 25mm two-layer voice coil immersed in high flux magnetic field, aluminum compensation rings to control eddy currents, die-cast aluminum baskets with large ventilation windows below the spider to improve circulation and enhance transient response, and 12mm of linear excursion to allow for extended low frequency response without distortion. And its central phase plug is actually uniquely shaped to even out the frequency response across a wider range, even off axis, so that no single sound like, say, a kick drum is going to arrive too early or overpower another, like a guitar chord. Everything is dispersed more smoothly and evenly, creating a wider, more natural soundstage. And this no doubt helps counter some of the AMT's more directional characteristics, giving Elysian a broader sweet spot. While the separate plinth kind of gives Elysian a sort of aesthetic grandeur, its engineering is actually purpose-built to both enhance low-frequency response and make them easier to place. Elysian's slot-loaded profile port harnesses the rear output of the bass driver, the sound waves that are generated inside the cabinet as the woofer moves inward, venting it down through the base of the cabinet, directing it out through the 1-inch gap between the speaker's body and the plinth itself. And there's really two benefits to this. One, deeper bass response, and two, its downfiring makes it easier to place nearer walls and furniture. My setup is probably somewhat less conventional than most, but it's not too dissimilar to a lot of modern listening environments here. Again, we're going back to the idea that space is a premium commodity in the modern age. And while Elysian is clearly a premium loudspeaker, it's also a loudspeaker that's been uniquely designed to accommodate smaller listening environments. Now, matching stands are available with the Elysian One, and if you have the room, they're the preferred option here. There's really no better way to dial in a perfect listening position, but its SLPP design meant that even in my setup, positioned as they were so close to the rear wall, I wasn't drowning in bloated or flabby bass. Regarding Elysian's crossovers, all components were selected for maximum transparency. Silicon iron cord coils in the bass and mid-range give the amplifier more precise driver control. Air core coils handled the treble, while low ESO polypropylene capacitors are used throughout the signal path for superior clarity and fidelity. The crossover design and implementation is as much an art as it is a list of quality components these days, so why not let the artist speak for himself, yeah? I had the chance to sit down with Mr. Peter Como, Director of Acoustic Design at IAG, and ask him about his design process. And here's what he had to say.
Most of my time is spent obviously on the crossover. I look to get the physical aspects of the speaker right first, because unless you have the drive units working well, the cabinet working well, everything including the cabinet filling working together to give you a coherent performance right across the frequency band, you can't start working on a crossover that actually makes the best of those attributes. So having got the fundamentals right, having got the physical parts right, and that's not an easy thing to do, that takes time. We spent, I think, around 6 to 8 months on the drive units alone, getting those right. Having done that, then the crossover is simply, how long does it take until I'm satisfied? How long is it sitting down, listening to music, making adjustments, going back to find through measurement what the problems that I'm hearing, where do they exist, how to correct them, and then more listening, more evaluation of music, bringing other people in to listen and getting their comments, taking those on board, refining, and then finally fine-tuning, making small changes, listening to the actual components of the crossover itself to find out where the best balance of components and types of components lie. And then putting together the PCB that the crossover's on. That's another design exercise which, when it's done correctly, really helps blend everything together and make sure that when you listen to the speaker, you can literally have the music floating free of the speaker. That you might have these physical objects in front of you, but if you close your eyes, you're just aware of the music.
So, back to the original question, can a modern two-way bookshelf speaker deliver mind-blowing musical experiences? Well, Wharfedale's Elysian One makes a pretty compelling case. Its massive AMTs deliver remarkable high-frequency detail and air. The carefully engineered mid-bass driver gives you these incredibly lifelike mids with deep, controlled bass down to 49 Hz. And the SLPP port gives you placement flexibility for tighter spaces, proving that supreme fidelity isn't exclusive to massive floor standards. And that's kind of the point, right? Fewer and fewer people have the space or the budget for full-range towers that hit 20 Hz. But a premium two-way bookshelf like the Elysian One can still deliver breathtaking dynamics, a deep, immersive soundstage, and a level of musicality that makes you forget about the specs and just listen. Plus, there's a lot of wiggle room here between the $8,000 Elysian One price tag and a full-range tower at nearly 5 times the price. Enough to purchase yourself a high-quality musical sub and get those remaining 29 Hz. The point here is that there are other ways to experience the pinnacle of premium audio, because a serious pair of bookies will get you there, and the Elysian One is kind of proof in the pudding.